Okay, welcome everybody. We'll get the high school workshop underway. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you is this the first workshop that you've attended? Oh, we have got a smash rate, great. So we've got a busy agenda, and I'll run you through that very shortly. But just to let you know, I'm a parent volunteer. My name's Stefan Brunner, and this is Mark Hexter from the board. And we're part of a visioning group that's been involved in quite a process to work through these visioning workshops, and I'll take you through that process shortly. But we're part of a bigger group, and I'll just see if we've got any of the parents that are part of that group, or board members and others. If you could just stand up briefly so people can be aware of who you are. You might have seen some in the foyer as well, Kirsten. So you can engage with any of these people, and they can help you with the process that we're going to go through tonight, because we've got some group work later on, and you'll go into little groups and they will help facilitate these groups. So that all the ideas that you gather in those groups, they'll come onto paper, but also we've got someone there who can carry some of the thoughts and thinking behind it as well. So in terms of process for what we're going to do tonight, we've got about 45 minutes of talking first. You're going to hear from Des Comerica and also Jane Patterson, and they're going to talk and give us some context really for the high school and the visioning, and enough flesh really so that you can go away in the visioning work and build on what you've heard and your own ideas and any thinking that you've already done yourself. So if you've got some of those feedback sheets that you might have got from the introductory sessions, you can pull those out as well and talk from that. So then we'll go into the group work, and then we'll consolidate and close. So that's just a high level quick overview. So just outlining the process that we've been through for those who haven't attended one of these before. Of course, we've got a vision drafted, and that work was done before we undertook these workshops. But what we've also got is another workshop coming on community, and we've already been through 6. So we're working our way through this process. But then we're going to consolidate all the information that we get from tonight and from the other workshops. We've got to build that in together and look at how it affects the thing overall. So there's a process with the visioning team that will go on after this. And then it'll be fed back again. There'll be another opportunity for anyone to hear what's come out of this, what's changed as a result. And so more feedback. And then finalisation of the plan, and then put it into action. So what that means is that it becomes embedded in everything the school does. It uses it as a guide to signal what it's aiming for. It filters through into policies and practices and those sorts of things. And then, of course, there'll be a celebration. We'll all be ready to celebrate once we get through this process. But it's an ongoing process as well. So any visioning thing, it's looking to the future, and it's an ongoing journey to map your path to get there. So that's so when we get on to the group workshops later this evening, you'll find that your facilitator can help you with this, but there are some guidelines that we're wanting to work to make this a really productive session for us and for all the participants. I guess the fundamental principle is that we want everybody to get a chance to have a say. So please do allow, and help others to contribute in your little work groups when we get to that point. And the key thing is to focus on the future. It's got to be aspirational. It's got to be looking at what do we want to see, and just focus your conversation on that, and it'll be a really good session. Have I covered anything there? Okay, so I think Jane's
start with the verse.
Start with the verse, yes.
I look into the world
plants they live and grow, the beasts they feel and live, and we to spirit give, a dwelling in our souls. I look into the soul that lives within my being, the Spirit of God releases, in light of sun and soul, in worldwide space without, in depths of soul within. To you, O Spirit of God, will I beseeching Him, that gifts of strength and grace, for learning and for work, within me live and grow.
Thank you. Well, just one more point before we get underway with Des. Just to let you know that we're going to get through an awful lot tonight, but there may be some unanswered questions because we can't get to everything. And if that's the case, just to let you know, we've got a board here to capture that sort of stuff. So, and you can come and write on it or ask us to write stuff for you. If at any point you think of something, note it down, and before you leave, make sure we capture it, and we'll look to find a way to get some answers back to you. So, Des, would you like to take it away?
A inga iwi inga mana i ngā reo tēnā koutou katoa. I te whānau o ngā tauira o te koro o Waiatarua, tēnā koutou. E hoa manga, tēnā koutou. E ngā mahita me ngā akonga, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Now, it gives me great pleasure to stand here in front of you this evening to talk about our high school. And there are three main themes that I'm wanting to cover very, very briefly this evening. And they are, provide an overview of the curriculum that we offer within our high school, how well we prepare our students for life after they leave, and what values we would like our graduates to have. Now, I know I have only a few moments of your time, so we'll get started. As with the lower and middle school, the main lesson in the high school is a central part of our special character. The high school continues to work with the developmental stages of the student, and the curriculum arises out of generic impulse of each year. You can see what each of the impulses are for each class within our high school, and Jane will talk more to that in her presentation. Now, if you can imagine each impulse as a musical note, then each year has its particular characteristic tone, where individual students either resound above, below, or in harmony with the note. All of the main lessons have themes which relate directly to the basic tune, and in this way the curriculum is both holistic and organic with cross-references through many disciplines. Within the main lesson and subject program, there is this consistent planned curriculum that continues from Class 1 to Class 12. The guiding principles of learning through willing and imitation in the kindergarten and through feeling and authority in the lower school changes in the high school to emphasise learning through clear thinking and the teacher's knowledge as specialists and enthusiasts in their own subject area. In addition, students participate in outdoor education. So, for example, Class 9 do practical environmental work, planting trees at Hamlin's Hill in Mount Wellington. Class 11 investigate local industries off-site, and Class 12 undertake a year-long self-directed independent project. In each year level, they go on a class camp as part of a particular main lesson. So this year, for instance, Class 9 went down to Taupo as part of their Rights and Responsibilities main lesson. Class 10, Whatipu for surveying. Class 11, Hanua for the ecology main lesson. Class 12 travelled up north as part of their astronomy main lesson. And as well as that, Class 12 will design and undertake a self-discovery journey during their writing camp at the end of the year. As a high school, we come together and work at various projects around our school over a couple of days that we call Enviro Days. You know, the rationale for Enviro Days is taken from the impulse of Rudolf Steiner's writings to work as a community of high school students and teachers, to show pride in and care for our environment and make a difference to it that lasts over a long time. You know, some of what we do during that time as a whole group is very brief, like baking bread, but this sustains and helps the whole endeavour by feeding us at the end of each day of working. The table back there outlines all of the subjects that we currently offer and teach this year. So Class 9, for instance, students take all of the subjects outlined above. In Class 10, the majority of the curriculum is still compulsory. However, the only difference is that they choose what language they will continue with during the year. And also, students are given the opportunity to take music as an additional subject. By class 11, students will have an idea of what direction they may be working towards, and so are able to choose 4 subjects along with English as their course program. And in class 12, students choose 5 electives that make up their program. One of our strengths within the high school are the small classes that we are able to have in specialist subjects. It is the small classes that really help to consolidate learning for our students. Another strength are the wide number of options that we're able to offer for such a small high school, and we're only talking about 120 students. You know, I think you'll be pressed to find this many options of a school for our size. So how well do our students do with their studies? I remember being asked by a DP at a conference a while back if we actually prepare our students for the real world, or are they able to get into university when they leave school? You know, and I remember thinking at the time, you know, if that's all you're looking for in a graduate, then I reckon you're selling yourself short. I answered him, of course we do, and more. You know, we prepare our students for life. Students who are analytical, independent thinkers. Our approach within the high school is no different to how my colleagues in the kindy and the lower or middle school hold a child. And I'm reminded by a passage from Rudolf Steiner. We accept children with reverence, we educate them with love, and send them forth in freedom. I believe we're making the world a better place. Overall, there has been a steady increase of raising student achievement within the high school. In most cases, student achievement has improved consistently over the past 4 years at level 2, level 3, and also students attaining UE. A new mentoring program that Jane will talk about has provided clearer information for students to take responsibility for their own learning. Teachers are analysing their data more effectively to make informed choices within their courses throughout the year. These have been major influences that have resulted with admirable results within our senior school recently. Now, the percentages are given as a means to compare student achievement against national and similar decile schools provided by NZQA, and I've also provided the actual numbers of students in each of those classes. The top table for Class 12 highlight the continual trend that the majority of graduating students are leaving Michael Park School with a Level 3 qualification. 2011 results show that our students are continuing to attain endorsements with merit, even though no excellent endorsements were awarded last year. So for those of you that aren't familiar with NCEA, a student needs to get 80 credits in order to get NCEA. If 50 of those credits are at excellence, then it's endorsed with excellence, that qualification. If 50 credits are made up of a mixture of merit or excellences, they get endorsed with merit. The bottom table, as you can see, if we compare these results with data provided by NZQA, we can see that our students are performing really well when compared to all secondary schools, and also those in the same decile range. Incidentally, we're a decile 9 school. Having the availability of providing a broader curriculum at Class 11 has enabled our students to perform exceptionally well against all the secondary schools, as well as those that are in the same decile range. Now, I want to highlight 2 things, okay? The first thing is that these results are from our current Class 12 students last year. 20 out of 24 students managed to get level 2. Of that 20, 11 of them managed to get an endorsed qualification. All of those 11 students have come from a ward-off education. 8 of those students came from Michael Park. 1 student came from Titirangi and then came into Michael Park. Another student came from a ward-off school in Australia and then came to Michael Park. And then the last came from Australia via Titirangi via Michael Park back in Class 10. So, if we go back to that question that I was asked, do we prepare our students for the real world? You only need to look at the data. So we requested data from the universities to find out how well high school graduates from the 4 Steiner high schools cope at tertiary studies. So that's Christchurch, Hawke's Bay, Wellington and Michael Park School. They provided a list of all graduates and their degrees from 2003 to 2010. 82% of students from Michael Park School complete degrees once they start them. 75% of all Steiner High School graduates from all 4 high schools. Now, when you compare that nationally to 48% of all schools, Steiner kids do exceptionally well. But what I want to point out is that academia is not what drives us at this school. You know, it's the development and the nurturing of the child that's at the heart of our education. So what are our challenges? One of them being able to offer a qualification that acknowledges all of the work a student does within a Steiner school. So you saw from the data that on paper, the current model we are using does work. However, there is a better model. But it is really important that we need to make sure that we get it right the first time and have checked and double-checked that it will work. The second point is an email that I read last week about a different issue altogether. However, that particular sentence struck a chord with me. As a community and school, we have to be able to grapple for ourselves what it really means to be a Steiner school in this place and time in Auckland in the early stages of the 21st century. These visioning workshops, I think, are going to be instrumental in helping to determine that. Communication is the only way we're able to walk down that path together. A few weeks back, during a high school meeting, we spent that particular meeting grappling with what we think a Steiner graduate in high school and a Steiner high school could look like in the 21st century, and these are what we came up with. Now, I know that I've bombarded you with a lot of information, but this is just giving you an insight of where we are at present. Jane will take over and talk about how our high school is looking forward towards the horizon. Nō reira, me mihi dui aroha ki a koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora. Kia ora.
It's really hard being a teenager. When teenagers get there, their brain undergoes a tremendous burst of growth. It's the biggest burst of growth since they were born, basically, or soon after. And very often they lose capacities. They forget how to learn things. They forget stuff that they already knew. They have to learn how to do things for themselves again. They have to prune their neural pathways, as a scientist who studies this put it. And that's really hard. And at the same time, the body's growing, the hormones are racing, everything is really difficult. It makes them very sure that they know everything. Absolutely, their brain's telling them they know everything. That tells them that adults around them, especially their parents, know nothing, basically. And that whatever they want to do, they should be able to do. And at the same time, they keep finding themselves making mistakes and getting themselves in fixes and being totally embarrassed about themselves and by themselves, especially when it has anything to do with social situations with people that they fancy. It's really hard being a teenager. But I think there's something that is probably even harder, and that is parenting teenagers. Thinking back to my own two, my son and my daughter, without any stories to enlighten you as to why I should say this, it was among the most difficult times in my life of trying to help them find the way and be honest and true to themselves and achieve as they should have done, as they did in the end, while not suffocating them and caging them and doing all the things that shaking them and shutting them up with, and all the other things that I wanted to. I think it's much easier being a teacher because we're not so emotionally involved with our teenagers. I think it's a really difficult time. And it's a difficult time for both sides. And the thing that we have to do, and I think from my conversations, especially from our guest students and our other visiting students from other Steiner schools this year, the thing that we're managing to do at the moment is teachers and students walking alongside each other and walking towards the same goals and finding a way to do that. That's one of the things that we've got to keep doing in our high school. In the primary school, when you're a primary school teacher, you're trained to teach children. You're trained how to work with the different individual needs, and you have strategies for working with different learning styles and so on. High school teachers in the big wide world are primarily trained to teach a subject. And you see from our results that academic rigour is there. We're able to do that. But as Steiner teachers, we also have to know what we're doing why we're doing it, and how we can use the teaching of our subjects to help the development of the students in our care. If we think again about this pruning the neural pathways and learning to work again with their brains, it's really important to have that wonderful experience of learning maths and getting the right answer. If you're painting a picture, it can be beautiful, but it's never right in the same way. That those two different qualities, those two different experiences in our brains develop different capacities in the teenagers that we're working with. And of course it's true in the primary school, but more and more the hard work consciously with different subject matter in the high school is so important. If you're studying the life of Martin Luther King Jr., for example, or if you're making a loud explosion outside the chemistry lab, they're equally wonderful experiences. One lasts a bit longer than the other maybe, but they can both be exciting and thrilling and challenging and make you really want to understand what's going on and how you can be involved in stuff. If you're working with the crafts, working with clay, this cold, wet, totally malleable substance is quite different from working with iron, red hot iron that you have to hit with power and energy before it will move. Or again, with wood, with its grain, where once you've taken something off, that's it, it's gone. You can't change it, put it back like you can with clay, or even to a certain extent with iron. Those three I chose because they're the crafts that Class 10 do. And so we choose the subjects and the qualities of those subjects that can help the student find themselves actually and be the best they possibly can be. And as Des said, Class 9 and Class 10 basically do everything. Class 11 and Class 12 go on having those experiences in their main lessons, and they're able to really hone their intellectual skills and competencies as well as their physical skills and competencies, as well as their social skills and competencies in their specialist subjects. So I could go on about the different classes. In Class 9 there's intense black and white polarity where for many of them there is no grey areas. You're either right or you're wrong. Parents are usually wrong. I remember it very well. Arguing with my son all the way home one day in the car, all the way from here to Titirangi where we lived at the time, and at the gate getting out and saying, well, we'll just have to agree not to agree. Next day I heard him having the same argument with somebody else, only he was arguing my point of view. But I was wrong, right? When we had that argument, I was wrong. And we have to allow that to happen. The Class 9 student needs that intellectual, it's like two rams hitting their heads against each other. They need that. And they need to try out different viewpoints so that in the end, by Class 12, they know what is actually their own viewpoint. Class 10, they're beginning to come towards balance, and they go through processes. They want the logical steps, one after the other, so that they can know how they can get from here to where they're going to. And usually by the end of Class 10, I think in Rudolf Steiner's day it was earlier, but nowadays modern young people don't get there until the end of Class 10, they have come to some sort of balance. Class 11, they want to know about the individual. Specifically, they want to know who they are, who I am. They want to meet the other. They develop empathy and understanding for others. And they do that magnificently and amazingly. And at the same time, they want to look at the details, to analyse right down to the very details. And in Class 12, they put it all together. World consciousness and synthesis, and put the whole thing together to make sense of everything they've experienced so far to take out into the world. But the world is changing. When we designed and built the present high school block, and I was part of the team that did that, what we were designing for is actually not true today. The world has changed. That was 25, 30 years ago. I can't remember exactly when we did all the drawings and when we divided the space up as we did. If we were designing it now, it would be different. We need all those specialist areas for all those different skills and different subject areas, the ones we know of today that Des had on his list, and the ones that we haven't got a clue about that will be here in 30 years' time. I mean, that really is the problem, isn't it? That what we have to prepare our students for is something that we do not know about yet. We haven't got there yet. All we can say, I think, is that the people who are closest to it, that if we listen to the most, can tell us more about it than we know, are our students, are the people who are younger than we are today. That brings me to my job this year. So I started middle of last year. It was Dee's bright idea. Go and talk to everyone in class 10, she said. And when I told the high school teachers, they said, and class 12, and class 11, and class 9. So I started talking to every student one-on-one and asking them, what are your goals? And specifically, try and make one goal, the right goal for you, that will help you this year to be the best you possibly can be. And they tell me. Some of them set goals right out on the horizon, and some of them set the goals that will support them in their journey from day to day and hour to hour. They know what sort of person they are. And then I say, okay, so how are you going to do that? So they tell me the strategies, and they know. And of course, I can ask useful questions, and I can make useful suggestions, but I might make 4 suggestions, and I can tell by their faces when I've hit the right one. They know themselves. I think this is one of the things that's changed most in our young people. They know themselves really well. They may not be able always to carry out their strategies, but they know what they actually should be. So, what are we going to do about all that? That brings us to the future. We need rooms and equipment. We need spaces. We need inspiring, enlivening teachers. We need supportive parents. We need the community around. But what's that going to be in the future? How big should our high school be? Should it be just a high school for Michael Park? It never actually has been. As Des said, we've always taken in students from other schools, sometimes more than others. Should we be consciously being a big high school that draws many students from the Waikato, from wherever else in Auckland New Steiner schools may start? Should we have a boarding facility? Should we still be attached to the primary school in Michael Park? I have to tell you, there are very hot ideas on both sides of that argument, that of retaining one school so that the high school students remember where they came from and the lower school students can see where they're going to, or separating them out and giving both a bit more space. That's a lovely argument. What else should we be doing for them? And what can parents do to support the school and the education? This workshop, it was headed originally Self-Actualizing Learners. And when we talked about it in the high school teachers meeting, we came up with our translation of that. We think that that means students who are aware in their thinking, connected in their feelings, and empowered in their actions. But that's just our opinion. And we want you in your groups to talk about 2 questions which you'll find on your tables. And the first one is, what knowledge, qualities, skills, whatever, should graduates of Michael Park School have when they leave? And this is now, and this is also into the future. And how can we, as parents and educators, enable this to happen? And again, now and into the future. The world doesn't stand still, our students don't, and we've got to be ready for that.
Thank you, and we're spot on time. So, Jane and Des, would you like to come up and take some questions then? So, having heard what you've heard, or anything else going through your mind, please raise your hand and we'll take some questions just about the high school and division. Are there any questions? Up the back.
In relation to class size, because class size is quite a concern in our parents in the lower school. So can you explain, can you explain why, also how the class size, this is true of attrition, gets smaller in the high school? Is it because the lessons are spread out less of the students?
Yeah. So for instance, I think the biggest class that we have is about 35 students, and the only time the class is together is when there is for main lesson in the morning, and then after interval they break off into different streams. So English is split into half. So in terms of like your subject lessons that we would have after interval, there'll be as probably 15, maybe 17 students. When you get into class 11 and 12, the level 2 and 3 programs, they even specialise further, so they could be as small as 6 students, even 4 students, depending on what that option is. And so it's those small class sizes, and that's just it. In state schools it wouldn't be sustainable, it wouldn't roll at all, and that's one of those special characters, or one of those sort of key things that we're lucky that we can still hold on to at the moment. But just like anywhere else in the country, we're struggling to try and keep that sustainable.
Yeah, and do you think that schools are under immense financial pressure, so is it the goal for us to keep it like that in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that is the goal. I mean, yeah.
I primarily teach main lessons apart from my one-to-one work. And having the energy of 35, we've gone up to 42 in a main lesson, that is a huge energy, and when you can really work with that dynamic between the students creates an enormous amount of learning conversation within the classroom. And that's great for main lessons. And then, half of 42 is 21, so those same students for English and maths and all that never experience large classes for that. And it works. What would happen if we had 55 in a class? I don't know what we would do then. Then we would have to be creative if we're thinking about the future. But that's the situation at the moment.
Just one other comment on the financial aspect of it, which I think is really important from a parent point of view when you've asked about the class sizes and the affordability in the school's financial situation. There's a tension between keeping them small, which means being able to fund them, and then making the opportunity to participate in the education as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And actually, in the end, that's a community decision, because the government gives us a fixed amount of money. We have no say over that, essentially. The part that's variable is the part that you contribute. So in the end, it's your call, and we don't know the answer to that. So that's part of the question that we face in this vision and work is to resolve that, because we can't have it both ways. We need to put the balance somewhere.
Jane, what do you think is the optimum number for that main lesson? I mean, are you topped out at where we're at now, or
The rooms,
because of the rooms? I'm saying what? Rooms
42 was a squish in the rooms, but they manage it somehow. We wouldn't manage more than that. Realistically, we would not manage more than that. I don't think.
You just say that the teacher's optimal number is 35. 36. I can't imagine us getting to 42 again in lessons.
Unless we were crazy
So,
again.
yeah. So the teacher's number for main lessons 35, 36. That means you can have fantastic splits and almost tutoring situations after morning tea. If you have less than that, you're back to whole classes for English and maths. So that 35, 36 is an optimum number. Anything after that, you're just going to pretty much killing teachers with marking.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Marking is the worst.
Yeah.
No.
You try and get the level of feedback and feedback to students. Okay.
School roll dropping, seen from some of those numbers or not? Is it getting bigger or what's happening with the high school roll?
Can you repeat the question? Because we've got questions.
Is the high school roll dropping, just based on the numbers? And short answer is no, it isn't. It just depends from year to year. So, for instance, this year's class 12, there's 22 students. Last year it was 24. There are a number that left back in class 10. So, on the whole, we managed to, to keep most of our students, that go right through to class 12. In most instances, it's probably about 2/3 of the class have come from kindy right through. And then the rest have either joined the class in class 1 or class 2 or have come over from, Te Tirangi or, a couple have come in from state schools.
So statistically, over the last 5 years, we've had 2 years of actual growth and 3 years of stability. So 6 years ago, we were having formal roll. Actually, what has growth and now stable numbers.
And one of the reasons they're staying is our commitment to support our students who want to do things like medicine and engineering. And we have a lot in classes 11 and 12 in those, and law. Those are the 3 top ones that our present class 11 and 12 students want to do. Making sure they have the sciences and the maths and the other quality subjects that they need, as well as doing the arts and the crafts and all the other things that our other students also need to go on to specialise where they want to go. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we've had this stability that we have.
And is that a cliche of being this online school that the students are going to be lawyers and doctors?
I think it's partly that. I think it's also their own inner beings that they want to support development in the world. So one of the guys who wants to be a doctor was saying the other day, I'm more and more sure that this is what I want to do, and when I qualify I will go and I will work all over the world and help, and he was just talking about that sort of stuff. So yes, they want to do those things, but they also have moral, social reasons for doing it as well.
Now, I understood from hearing what we're going to do in the workshop groups is that we're going to be talking about what knowledge base we want the students to have. I went to a school that gave a huge knowledge base, but very little life skills. And the reason we're here, in my opinion, is because we think that the kids are getting a great holistic education and an understanding of them, not necessarily, and for me it's because I'm a project, that they're getting a huge knowledge base. Because I've got immense knowledge base now, I still come up with facts when I was 17.
Thank you. You can certainly bring that through the workshop when we get to that too. Question down here.
Presumably because you've opened up the roles in kindy in 11 years or so, no, 10 years, you're going to have much larger numbers in your high school. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Dee, can you talk to that?
It's interesting, we've got quite a big number of class ones coming through, but the 2 years before that, nationally, are demographically really low. So although we did increase the kindergarten, it hasn't necessarily created more numbers going through the school, because what it did was rather gave children more days. So we didn't really increase the numbers, we increased the amount of time children already in the kindy would have. So some children were getting all the way to being 6 and still only getting 3 days a week, whereas now if you want 5 days a week for every child, you can offer that. Having said that, when you're looking at numbers of 35 class 1s coming through at some point, we're going to have to look at double streaming, or do we reduce the number of children we have coming through? We're not yet enough for double streaming, but we still want to offer 5 days a week. So, yeah.
So,
we really don't know just at this point.
We won't find out to probably, if there is still that big bulge and, by the time they get to, let's say, class 4, because we'll need a bit of time, to try and
So there is
make sure we
more
address
than
that.
35 years children coming through the next 4 years, certainly.
Mm.
The students that do leave the school, do you do exit interviews? You do. Great.
And their parents.
Do class 12 students still go to Dormer? That's still on the conversation.
Sorry.
Did class 12 students this year go to Dorna, to the class 12 international gathering? Yes, some of them did. 4 of them? 4 of them went this year.
Is it an option every second year? Is that how that works?
That it is a conference every second year.
But it has changed because there isn't any more international gathering. It used to be every second year, all class 12s from the world came together, but that stopped. And so now they just went to a youth conference, just a general one. It wasn't for class 12. So this 4 students choose to go there. So it's always an option for students to do that
Every
if they
year,
want
not
to.
every
They offer things, but it's not anymore this regular event where every 2 years it doesn't happen anymore.
Okay.
Some pretty impressive statistics that you put up earlier. What is the school doing to market those and bring in more people, or is it still about getting that balance where we don't actually need more people right now because it will create a dynamic that we can actually manage?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Very good question.
Put it up there tonight.
Yeah.
It is.
I can comment on that, because I've been on the board for 15 odd years, and over the last 18, and I think that the school's developed a long way. We weren't getting those kind of numbers 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So the school has got a lot better at producing students who've got the freedom to do whatever they want to do in the world when they leave the school. But I think as a school, we haven't done what we could have done to communicate that to the world, and I think we're just at a point now where that's a real opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think the school's often perceived as somewhat fringe, and that's part of our special character, but, when you're getting those and you're getting people who want to be lawyers, doctors and accountants and taking high profile positions, we should certainly be marketing that because you attract more of the same.
I did notice in the, was it the Metro Mail? Anyone else see that? They had a big spread about all the high schools everywhere, comparing them. I didn't see my part picture and I wondered.
Oh, because we've like the numbers, they're just so small. So, we only have, yeah. So we are really...
No, that's not the real answer. I found out this week what the real answer is. Somebody put Market Park School and didn't know where we were put, so we weren't put with all the integrated schools, and they didn't put us with state schools. Actually, we got lost off the system, to be honest. I can't sit here and not admit that. I found that out last week. So we will be in the next one, from what I understand. And
There's
we
another
look
one.
marvellous.
Oh,
We
every
look
year.
absolutely
They do it
marvellous,
every year.
yeah. I forgot to tell you this, sorry. Easy carry. So we've got the entire system.
We've got time for one more question? Or have we covered it all? Great, yep. Oh, one over there. Last one. Lucky last.
So apart from, finances and room space and all that, was there much you want to change about the high school?
Look, all my high school colleagues are here. Let's do that in the group, say. Because there's always room for change, there's always room for improvement. And the world changes, the students change, the different cohort every year. You have to keep changing. And the place in the school that needs to keep changing the most is the high school. That's the reality.
It would be interesting just to affirm that the teachers that are here tonight to speak with your imagination as to what you saw for the possibilities of the future, because it really helps those of us that are not in that space every day to know what's coming from the future and what you see, where you want to meet it.
Sure.
Okay, shall we move on to some group work things? Sorry,
I've just got one question, and it's a little bit out there, but after the earthquake, a lot of schools in Christchurch had to close for these reasons, but they accommodated children at schools running a morning program and an afternoon program. Would that be something that people would look at in the future, where
that in your discussion groups. Talk about it there. It's interesting.
School's very linear, but we think about it like that because the school stands empty.
So I think that's a great kind of example of the school's open to hearing your ideas and input. So yeah, absolutely, that sort of idea, discuss it in the group, see what comes out. Yes, would you like to set up for the question time? Just a reminder too that if some questions occur to you through the night that haven't been answered, we can put them on that. We can capture them on the chart over there a bit later. But you're going to set up the presentation. Well, that's what we're down to.
Go on, I've said them already.
Or should we just have to? Okay, so now we're going to get set up for the group work. I just want to check with Kirsten, in terms of numbers tonight, is your recommendation about 6 per table?
Yes, I still think it's about 6 per table, but I mean, if you need to try and make it 6 per table, the reason being you'll get more of a chance to be heard. If you look, everybody's got 6 at a table, don't mind making one 7. That's what I would say.
Right.
But do remember that we need to open that door. There's one table that's important and hiding through that door tonight because we did not set up, for those that have been coming to these, we did not set one up on the very tippy top upstairs. So the ones you see when you came in, this one and over here.
Yeah, so just behind that door. So the reason for keeping them in small groups is really we do want everyone to get a say. If you get a big group, it gets difficult to get heard much. So encourage you that if you see the table's already full with about 6, then move on to another one. And the key really is try and make sure everyone gets some good time to have a say and get their ideas out. You'll find that there'll be a facilitator person at each group who can help run the process and just make sure that you stick to the guidelines that we talked about earlier in terms of making it aspirational language, and we'll all get through. So the first thing you're going to do is introduce yourselves, then you're going to do some brainstorming on some ideas, and this is about ideas to enhance the vision for the high school. And is there anything else we should add before we get in
Well,
our
I'm
groups
just
and go?
curious, there are 2 questions that we've got on the table. Are the 2 questions in the 30 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. So the questions that have been handwritten on the table by our lovely Jane are the 2 questions you're working with in the 30-minute period. And we as a group didn't actually come together and discuss this, so this is why I'm saying it out loud. So there were not actually the numbers in the vision team here tonight. So please, high school teachers, if you could look and take an eye and at a table, don't all cluster. You could make sure that you spread yourselves out because you will act as a facilitator tonight because there's only 2 of us tonight. So there will be 4 tables, for about another 3 to 4 tables. So if you could make sure you do spread out. I want to be clear because we didn't meet as a team. We're prioritizing. How do you want us to prioritize these groups? Are we coming back as a large group and doing what we normally do?
Yeah, we're coming back to debrief afterwards, so you're going to go away for a half an hour. We'll give you some warning before you're due to come back, and you're going to brainstorm some of those ideas, and you're going to do some prioritisation work. And the key thing we ask about the prioritisation work is you mark clearly your top 5, because you're going to come up with a lot of ideas. A good brainstorming, you'll come up with lots and lots of stuff, but we won't be able to feed all of it back. We want you to say, as a group, what are kind of the top 5 things that came out that kind of resonated with the group. Okay, we need to get going. So we're going to do some group feedback. If I could just see a show of hands so I can get a rough idea where the spokespeople are. Spokespeople. Okay, I'll try and find you as we go through. I'll go round. For those of you who have been here before, I'll just go round in a circle basically and capture you one at a time if you talk to your top 5. So what we're going to do is collect, if you've got anything to collect in terms of the second question, which we're not going to talk through tonight, I'll just put them down there. But what I want you to do is just talk briefly to your top 5 for your group. Don't cover everything that's on the post-it notes, just gives a feeling and a summary for the group of the key things, top 5. So, who would like to go first? Who would like to kick us off?
I will. One of our ones we've got main heading is life skills. So we've got encapsulated in here dietary, exercise, sexual and financial skills.
Oh, if you wouldn't mind, sorry, if you wouldn't mind talking
Okay.
to the group, I'm just conscious people might not catch you.
Someone's going to
Great
hold it
feedback.
away.
I will hold that for you.
No, fine. So what we've got a heading under here, life skills, and one of the main things, just to summarise it, was working with health skills, dietary, exercise, sexual and financial skills. That's about that financial literacy, so they don't head out there and get into debt. So that's learning skills to do with basic bookkeeping if they go into businesses, as well as their basic budgeting. And a way of doing that is, and also encouraging past students to come along and speak to class 10 children that then have to make decisions for what subjects they want to take for class 11 and 12. So they've got practical experience that's relevant and age-wise to the students that are coming through.
Yeah, okay.
So how do you want to take these?
Well,
Just leave
The whole thing.
I'll
The whole
take the
thing.
whole
Yep.
thing together.
Afterwards.
If you just run through your top 5 reasonably quickly and
Oh, the whole. All right. Steiner's the highest priority, that they want to have that standing alone, and that. Yeah, that's it. The qualities was another heading we had, that children come out grounded individuals that have empathy and social conscience, with tolerance and respect, and open to the spiritual side of their lives. The other one is careers guidance, able to discuss with everyone, be generalists. So come out with a broad base from the education they have, so then they can go become specialists based off that broad base. This is curriculum stuff that they have in technology, keyboard skills, so they come out not just two-fingered typists, and keep the curriculum flexible to cater to the changing needs of the groups that are coming through, and that honours all career choices, not just doctors and lawyers. And on the curriculum stuff, that have performance skills around public speaking, that they are eloquent speakers, and they are also able to write English well, as well as speak it, our creative writers. And that we have sustainability topics in the school, like if a student wants to be able to do a sustainable project, that maybe there's a budget that it can come from past alumni or businesses that are in alignment with that project that they have. There we go, that's us.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's just about the right time to give a great summary. So, Kirsten, are you next?
I feel like you're going after that. You guys were very well spoken. You've written things out really well. Yes, so our top 5, I will start with, we had, in here we had which was our number 1? Oh, here's our top ones. Equipping the students with skills that help them cope with the real world. Much like you said, we wanted financial literacy, personal finances, skills for how to garden, and sow and plant and harvest food, all these sorts of things that you're saying, underlining what you say. And then we have equipping students with problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, analysis and synthesis. We felt that those were tried and true skills that would apply for the future and now always serving them. Then we had winners. Everything was kind of tied here. We had temperaments to be incorporated into the learning in classes, teachers knowing and understanding their students, also opportunity for the students to know this within themselves. And for the future, then another one is, in the future, wanting to see more movement in the classrooms, more crafts, vibrant music program to balance their head, hands, and heart. And then it tied with, we actually pulled it out. Vibrant music was actually pulled out on its own, even though there was a list of things, and it actually came in here and tied as well. It's just basically a vibrant music program that had orchestra camps and a choir, and teaching it to a very high level, that we wanted to see that taken and blown out very far. So I think those are the ones we had asked us.
Wonderful, thank you. So, just like Kirsten, if you could come down and turn around and talk to the group.
Here we go. This is my picture. So, So a lot along the life skills, the one thing that was a common thread for us was empathy and the ability to understand things from another business perspective. So yeah, I hear all those things, but sort of empathy as well, so that we understand each other as human beings. Sort of leading on for that, but perhaps one on its own, was a sense of self. So within that was a lot of things of self-motivation, self-pride, self-awareness, just generally a sense of self, so that you understand yourself as a human being, and often that helps you with empathy as well, two go hand in hand. Love and respect for learning, so that's really a breadth and depth of knowledge, good general knowledge, the ability to be able to apply learning to whatever it is, because like we said, we don't know what we're going to be doing in 30 years' time, so you need to be able to just learn, and whatever that is that comes along, you'll be able to adapt. Courage, courage for all, so it's not only to stand up for yourself, and that goes under the sense of self, but it's the ability to stand up for other people, and I think we do see that in the kids today, especially those in the upper school. And then going out there and celebrating our uniqueness and our successes. So, the best thing is for the past alumni to go out there and to be marketing the school to other people of their same age group, same things. And as they go, just keep talking good of the school. We'll grow it in that way. All right.
Thank you. You've got courage, wisdom and empathy, but you missed that love.
There's plenty of love in this school.
We'll get that from your group, I'm sure. Up the back, or are you ready? Yep. No, you can come down. Come down and talk. I'll help hold it for you.
I think our group may have done a little bit of gossiping because... Okay. With our group, it was quite interesting because we had a person from the Steiner Trust, we had a person that's 2 teachers from the school, and then we had only 2 other parents, so me being one of them. And when we were first asked to do this, I put a lot of emphasis at the beginning, because I was trying to think of something at the very beginning. So I put a lot of emphasis on academic, and I wanted my children to be come out with a really highly recognised qualification, and for them to be, for the school to have a widest range of subjects possible, and so that's where I came from, and everyone sort of circled academic as well, but we realised that all the other things that we had here, like creativity, practical skills, leadership skills, being part of the global community, having high confidence, moral values, and being really self-motivated. We realised, actually listening to one of the teachers, was that you can't have this academic success without having all these other things, and particularly, most importantly, he mentioned that the children must be self-motivated and they must be confident. Mm-hmm. So I think from all of our point of view, although we had slightly different goals, we all agreed that the school must provide those things, and that was really important to us, and that the students, when they leave Michael Park, we really want them to be having those skills, and if they have those skills, they'll do well academically. That's right. And they'll also be very interested in the global community. That's right. And obviously, so that's what we think.
It gives meaning to doing well academically as well.
Yeah, so although I sort of said something at the very beginning, I realised that although we're quite different, this is what is important to us. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Well done, sir.
Perfect. You next? Sorry.
How's it spa? But we did have a few unanswered questions. And also we broke the rules because we did have some practical solutions. So a sense of justice and learning to have a political voice. The practical solution is to have a student council with a formalised structure. It seems to us that teenagers want to be heard and to practice arguing. To be comfortable in the Māori world, And a practical way of initiating that would be to have a normal marae as a foundation to beginning their community life. And part of that is to be comfortable in the international community as well. To be lifelong learners, self-explanatory. This is a bit more difficult probably to explain. Now, parental / community / skills / knowledge and involvement. And so I've put down here the concept of self-employment, to use all of that, to think about being self-employed rather than being potentially unemployed. And a practical,
people think about all the time.
a practical way through to that might be a community workshop, which somebody said, is that like a night school? Well, it could be whatever is required, but an ongoing workshop, which could be like a hot house or an entrepreneurial, communal. It's a workshop space for people to have cottage industry that's ongoing, that sits alongside the high school.
Cool.
To be actively compassionate, and this comes back again to the recurring theme of nonviolent communication as a tool for kind of cutting through bullying. And we leave the other ones on there that didn't make the five, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's wonderful.
All
Thanks
right,
very
cheers.
much.
No worries.
Great, thank you.
Amazing going last and hearing everybody speak and realising, isn't it wonderful that we all come up with so many of the same things, and that we're all on the same pathway and the same wavelength and thinking together. And so here we go, our 5 different groups. We begin with rounded personal qualities, spiritual strength, empathy, confidence, physical health, curiosity and wonder, all these personal qualities, bringing those out, and then interrelating with other people, relationships with others, communication, empathy, an ability to listen and appreciate other people, and creative problem solving. Within the school, which is great. The sense of passion and values, passion for learning, realising that passion in any subject is what gives us the ability to achieve in any area. If we can put our enthusiasm into it, we can do well at anything. And so it's encouraging that curiosity and sense of owning it with passion. Getting to know themselves, who they are, freedom from compulsion, freedom from addictions, getting a sense of self-discipline, and being able to, here we had knowledge, which breaks into sort of two streams. One was really nice to see them getting a knowledge of what it's like when they come into a family situation, what it's like in parenting situations, and to get a sense of the things that you go through in life, your life skills, I guess it is. And that was something we all resonated with. And of course the other side of knowledge is a general, all-rounded knowledge of history, geography, other cultures, practical skills, and lots of that. So lots of connectedness between what everybody's saying, and I really liked that the previous group, and then bringing that out to the whole world. So
That's great. And you've all done a great job of grouping them all for us, which is going to make our lives a bit easier. So thank you. Okay, we'll just check ourselves for time. We have actually got some time for a response from Dee or Dee, just in terms of anything you've heard and want to comment.
like to say thank you to all the high school teachers, to you, Jane and Dees, for making such a wonderful introduction, and to you high school teachers for coming. You know, in 10 hours' time, they've got to be their best, vibrant, shiny selves, you know, leading these children through that. So coming out tonight is a really big thing. And thank you to parents. I was trying to, okay, I'm sort of walking around listening to you and saying, how can you possibly have a closing thought for all of these wonderful things? But what I do want to say to you is that when children, you know, they come through the kindergarten and they might have 2 or 3 years there, and then you've got these 8 years in the lower school. It's 11 years in total to bring them through all this nurturing and supporting them and loving them. And then you end up with four short years in which to bring them from being through that, you know, gesture where you hold them and protect them, to suddenly they're 18 and you do not want them to be out in the world not carrying all these qualities. So it's 4 short years. So what does it actually mean really for teachers and parents? So, you know, you heard Jane talking about it's tough to be a teenager. Well, I'm glad it's tough because the world is actually tougher. And the world is a fabulous, beautiful place for kids that come through these qualities, but also who can actually get out there and have a can-do attitude, who don't just fall over at the first time they hit a roadblock, that you know, can make mistakes and pick themselves up and learn, who will be like boomerangs got in the world but know to come back home, and all of those things you want. So I put it to you actually, we should not be just thinking about what we want them to be like when they leave class 12. I'm much more interested in where they're going to be a year later. For me, that's how I decide. So when ERO came to us and said to me, oh, what do you do about your class 12 data? I said, I do all the things you expect me to do, but actually I'm much more interested in where are the students in a year after they leave school. Because if they're still at home, lying on bed, you know, sponging off you at home, and not actually getting a job, or, you know, going to university and perhaps not turning their best, then what was the point of it all? So 4 short years for them to learn. Actually, they're going to get a piece of work, and they're going to get flung back at them, and actually not good enough, not achieved. It's not like the lower school where you might, you know, give them some gentle feedback. Of course, in 6, 7, 8, you're building towards that. But the real moment comes in the high school. They're no longer just measured against themselves. They are measured against other people. And it is really, really important. So I kind of disagree with you, Jane, a little bit. I think a teacher's job is easier than parents, provided the parents understand what the real task of the teacher is in the high school. It is no good giving back a class 9 student a piece of work going, excellence, and you know it's absolute rubbish, or hasn't met a standard or a level or a quality that they're either capable of, but also what they should be striving towards. It's no good saying to them, look, I know you're a beautiful, wonderful human being, and you've got all these fabulous qualities, and I've known you your whole life. Here we are, you can have excellence. That's not the job of a high school teacher. It's about truth. It's about really getting them. Rushama talks about confrontation. He didn't mean conflict confrontation. He was talking about holding that mirror up to that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old student and going, that's what's possible, and my job is to actually support you to get there. So if they get into trouble, they need to be getting into trouble. Hold the filter over what they tell you at home. I always say to parents, particularly teenagers, we promise not to believe everything they tell us about you if you promise not to believe everything they tell you about school. Parents' job as teenagers, be the soft place to fall, and let them experience life. Celebrate their challenges. I have a real issue with this idea that people think, Steiner, you don't acknowledge the best of the best. We should be putting the very best of them. Bring in master craftsmen, bring in the best of everything, and let them strive to be the very best they can at whatever it is. Sports, music, singing, academic, English, whatever it is. And we should just be giving them a huge round of applause. But when they're not doing well enough, let's tell them that too. And then help them and support them how to do that. Does that make sense? And when I look at my son, who's turned 29, and I'm so proud of him, and I think, well, why is it that when you got to the high school, we pushed through that little phase where you all go through when you're at primary school? Do we really want them to be in a high school? Shouldn't they be out in state school where they've got 2,000 kids around them and all of that? And the choice was taken away from us. There was no place at Mount Park School, so they had to go to state school. And they both have said to me, we lost out. It was just 4 more years to finish off, to take them through to class 12, to finish off those deep, meaningful, rich curriculum. So I made sure he had all of that home. But when I look at him now, and I think he gives full credit to the fact of where he is today because of his starting education. So push through those years where they become uncertain, they want to go out in the world, push through, keep them here, let them finish. And where else will they get tutored right through really to class 12? So thank you. And I think
Thanks very much, Steve. We're going to finish with a verse, but before we do, just want to give a plug for the feedback forms. We really love the feedback, so so make sure you give us some feedback on how we went tonight in terms of facilitating and presenting and those sorts of things, because we've still got another workshop to go, which we encourage you to come along to the community.
The last grand finale, John Laurie, Kirsten Bruce. Want you all to come and celebrate. We promise to make it fun.
Absolutely.
And if you
Community, it's on community.
If you don't happen to have a form on you for any reason, on the table, on the round table just before you go out the door, if you just fill it out there and leave it on the table, it'll be fine.
Yeah. Okay, so Jane's going to lead off. Whoops. Thank you.
This is the verse that we've put into class 9, 10 and 11's reports at the end of the year. The wishes of the soul are springing, the deeds of the will are thriving, the fruits of life are maturing. I feel my fate finds me. I feel my star finds me. I feel my goals in life are finding me. My soul and the great world are one. Life grows more radiant about me. Life grows more arduous for me. Grows more abundant within me.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good evening.